Please listen carefully.
Hi everyone, we are back again with the Knock and Talk show. I am Marcus.
And I'm Allison.
Go ahead and throw our plugs out there.
Oh yeah, I forgot that I had to start doing this at the beginning of the episode because we apparently have been screwing up. I've been putting our information at the end of the episode, and apparently you guys don't like to listen to the end of the episode.
We can't keep them entertained that long.
Yeah, so we have to ask you to do these nice things for us at the beginning of our episode. So bear with me for a minute. So we would like it and really appreciate it if you would follow us on our Instagram, which is Knock and Talk Podcast on Instagram. You can always reach out to us at our Gmail account, which is knockandtalkpod@gmail.com if you would like to be on the show, or you have a question, or I guess if you don't like us, you can always write us an email. I don't really
Send
care.
it. Yeah, we don't care.
Send it away.
Matter.
What's some of the new things? We're on a couple different platforms now. Amazon, we should be available come tomorrow. So by the time this gets released, we should be available on Amazon.
Oh, good.
We're available on TuneIn. And there was one more. iHeartRadio. We're available on iHeartRadio. And then also, the last thing, if you would like to support this podcast, you can support us by going to patreon.com/The Knock and Talk Show. And that is the best way that you can support our podcast, as well as sharing episodes and just sharing the fact that you love us so much, because honestly, that is the only way that people are going to hear about us, because we are not famous. So we would really appreciate any sharing, any help that we can really get so that we can keep this thing rolling, because we're having a lot of fun with it. And I think that's all I had to say.
Is that it?
I think
we got all the plugs out there.
I feel like usually I wait to the end because I have to remember all of it. So this
That's
is kind of hard to do at the beginning.
I can't remember any of it.
And then also, before we get too carried away, I just want to say we've been getting a couple compliments lately. Not that we have many listeners, so it's like very few between that we've been getting some compliments. But we've been getting some compliments that people like our voices on the radio. They said we have good voices. Which I think
radio voices.
Which I think is ironic, though, because I hate my voice. I fucking hate my voice. I think it's disgusting. I hate it. So thank you, whoever you are.
So we're gonna go into narrating children's books next. Is what we.
Oh,
you didn't know that?
No, I
didn't
know
that's what
that.
we're gonna do.
I didn't know that.
Books on tape. We can narrate those.
Oh, okay. Can I narrate like some fun books of the topics that I'm super interested in?
Yeah, that's all you.
Okay. All right. So should we explain what we're doing today? Because this episode is being released on a different day than we normally release
different
our
day,
episodes.
a little early, but one
For good
of
reason.
the most important days in the history of the United States of America.
Yeah.
Which is 9/11.
I agree.
Tuesday, September 11th, 2001.
Wow.
20 years. 20 years.
So,
Which it's hard to believe it's 20 years, but the worst part about it is how fast time goes.
yeah,
It's crazy.
it is crazy.
Which also means we're all 20 years older.
Which is, I'm not trying to make light of the situation, which is
No,
depressing in of itself.
It's just,
that
it's when you sit back and you think about everything as a whole, that's a long time.
I was 10 years old. 10 years old.
That's a long time.
So we had a couple reasons for why we decided to do this episode, because it was only a couple days ago that we were sitting down and we were like, you know what, we should do a 9/11 special. And I think I would like to preface it with this, and if you guys haven't figured this out already, neither of us are veterans. So we're not doing this episode from a veteran standpoint, or that one of us signed up for the military because of 9/11, nor do we have any family that was directly affected.
A little bit, but we'll get into that down the road.
I mean,
but yeah.
at least for me, I didn't have anyone direct. I'm talking like immediate. I had no family, at least that I'm aware of, that were involved, in the plane crashes at the towers in New York at the time or anything like that. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm missing someone that I is distant family members or things like that. But I mean, I was never directly affected from it. But you and I were discussing kind of where we were that day and what was going on and how young we were when it happened and how our understanding of it changed so much from when it happened in 2001 to today in 2021, and kind of where we're at today, and how we just thought it would be a good thing to kind of talk about just how our own perspective and like what we thought about it. And
the big thing is when you see everything about 9/11, it's never forget. I feel like a lot of people have.
I think they go on with their daily lives.
100%.
They just kind of move on.
But at the same time, I don't think it's something you should
no
forget just because of the significance of it, obviously.
Absolutely.
I think it's one of those events that have kind of changed and shaped everything afterwards, right? I mean, it has changed so many lives. It was the most significant thing that has happened. I shouldn't say ever in U.S. history, because obviously, but yeah, I mean, what a crazy, and I think it's easy for people today to talk about it because they were here for it. Mm-hmm. They remember watching it on the news, or watching it, for some people, happen live and, in person. Insane. Absolutely
you need to
insane.
Give me that tactical pen.
No, I'm not going to do that because I need to take notes.
You're going to hurt someone with that tactical pen. Give me that tactical pen. Do you want to start about where we were that day, or do you want to start about those documentaries? Because that was what really
Well, let's just kind of start from the beginning as far as where we were at and our feelings and things of that nature. Because I sometimes can't remember what happened the day before, what I had for dinner, last week. I remember this so vividly and have so many...
The floor is yours. I'll shut up. Go ahead.
Well, no, I just have so many memories that are around it, as far as that day and even my feelings about it and things of that nature. It's amazing how certain significant events stick with you so strongly, while other things you can't remember. You have no, and especially because we were young at the time. I mean, I was in 8th grade.
Well, I was young. You were old, but it's fine.
8th grade's old?
Yeah.
That's where we're going now?
Yeah.
Okay. So, 8th grade, sitting in my language arts class, and we had teachers who were married that taught, obviously, at the same school. Middle of class, we're sitting there, and I remember the male teacher coming and knocking on the window, and kind of having he was outside, obviously, but he knocks on the outside window, has a sidebar conversation with my language arts teacher, who was his wife. I will never forget the look on her face. It was like this panic, disbelief, and when we're all sitting there going, oh God, like somebody in the class is in trouble,
right.
Because you don't know what's going on. But she turned around, and by this time, both planes had struck the buildings. The look on her face, we could all tell something, obviously what's going on. She breaks the news to us. Plane has struck, both towers of the World Trade Center. And that's about all we had. Her husband obviously had a free period in there. Finds a TV, the big old school TVs on the wheels,
like the big
cart
over the top of it.
He wheels it into the classroom. They plug it in. We turn on the news, and I don't know what station it was, but we're watching live both towers smoldering. I mean, just the smoke, the fire. Everything stopped. Everything in our school stopped, and I know everything in the world stopped. But I will never forget sitting there watching that. The bell rang to change classes, and nobody moved from any classroom in that building. Nobody moved. Everybody was so involved in what was going on, and nobody could believe it. It was it was eerie. I remember it being eerie because the bell rings, and usually you're 10 minutes before the bell rings, you're trying to pack your stuff and bolt out the. Nobody talked, nobody moved. It was insane.
Do you remember understanding the scope of the issue and what everything meant?
Probably not fully at that time, right? I mean, 8th grade. So you obviously knew it was tragic. And again, by this time, both planes had struck, and we didn't know anything about the Pentagon. You know, the plane that went down to Pennsylvania, we knew nothing of that stuff. The main focus that day for us initially was obviously New York City, the Twin Towers. We're asking questions, and nobody really knew the questions to ask, but she pretty much alluded to this as an attack of some sort. We didn't know if it was foreign, domestic, you know, whatever the case may have been. So understanding the scope of it, probably not fully,
Right.
you know. But the eeriness of the building and what you were watching and everything else, I think kind of helped understand and kind of put in those pieces of, this is not good.
Right.
You know, I mean, it was, and we had kids, parents that were coming to sign them out of school, take them home early. I had to stay the whole day, unfortunately. But there was a lot of kids that, you know, everybody was in panic. Nobody knew what to do. Do you come and get your kid? Do you let them stay? I mean, what do you do? Because you obviously know it's not an accident.
Right.
And I will never forget leaving that day. And I remember going home and just being completely engrossed in the news. And I remember watching, by the time we got home, obviously both towers had fallen, and you know, the Pentagon's on there, and the plane that went down over Pennsylvania is now on the news. I sat there all night and watched the news. I was so engrossed in it, so involved, and I couldn't tear myself away. And I don't know why, because again, I don't know if I think by then you kind of understand, you know, you go home, you talk to your parents, your family, your siblings, and I think you kind of start to have a little more of an understanding, because, you know, again, I'm in 8th grade, so
Right. Well, you think you know it all.
I'm not an adult,
yeah.
But at that point, obviously, you're able to understand and grasp things more than, you know. But yeah, I'll never forget that. And I remember it was the next day, my dad and I've never seen so many American flags.
Well, didn't your dad go into work?
He did. When we got home that night, so he was actually working for a large university here in the state, a pretty well-known university. Not as a police officer for that job, but he obviously had things he needed to do there. I don't remember if they like shut down the campus and sent people home or what the thing was, but he had responsibilities there. Obviously he was a part-time police officer too at that time. I remember him coming home. He was home briefly. We kind of had a brief conversation. And then, yeah, as far as that department was concerned, everybody got called in.
Yeah. I can imagine.
So, yeah, he got home from one job, got dressed, showered, shaved in his uniform, and boom, he was back out. You know, you don't know what's next. Who's next?
That's the thing, is no one knew.
Is it domestic? Is it foreign? Is it going to happen in a podunk town again? Is it going to happen in another large state? Nobody knew. Right. So yeah, he was dressed and boom, back out the door. But I remember sitting there all night and just on repeat, watching those towers collapse.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was insane. And I remember the very next day, we went to Sears Hardware because we were going to find an American flag for the house. You could not, for a very long time, find American flags because everybody went out, everybody bought one, and everybody was flying them and displaying them. And it's kind of funny, but I took that thing very seriously. When we finally found one and put it on the front of the house, every morning I got up, I'd come down, I'd walk out the front door, and I'd hang it. If the weather got shitty outside or it got dark, I'd go out there, pull it, wrap it up, bring it back in, and it sat in the corner of the bottom of the stairs. And I remember doing that religiously every day for a long time afterwards. So I do think I understood the scope, and obviously you're being influenced, you're watching things, you're
Right.
hearing things, but that was my thing, was that American flag that we flew on the front of the house. Because by then, it's a terrorist thing, and everybody was all about the United States of America and the support and how people felt about each other. And I've seen, silly things on social media and stuff. We can't just go back to September 12th. And if we lived every day like we lived in September 11th and 12th of 2001.
Let's say lived every day like September 12th.
12th, yes. How about that? It would be a phenomenal country. Nobody cared about sex, race, gender, sexual preference.
Anything.
It didn't matter. This was literally the most united this country has been in a very long time, in those short days to follow.
Yeah.
And I remember that. I remember seeing it, hearing it. Like I said, everybody flew a flag out front of their house, their business. People were proud of it. I don't want to go back through the things that happened to September 11th, but as far as being united as a country, September 12th was it. That was...
Absolutely.
Never seen anything like it.
I don't have as vivid of memories of it. I called my mom a little bit earlier today, and apparently I had a false memory for all these years.
You came and got me.
For some reason, I thought that she, after either the first plane hit or the second plane hit, whatever it was, for some reason in my head, I was convinced that she came and got us and that we went home with her and we were sitting on the couch and we were watching the news. It was just like ingrained in my brain. Like, I feel like that's what happened. And she was like, no, that is not what happened.
So you were in what grade then?
So we argued about that too, but I just looked at my yearbook and apparently I was in 5th grade. So
okay,
that settled that. I looked at the book or yearbook. So 5th grade. And so I was 10 years old, and, I'm semi-embarrassed, to even admit this, but I think that this sheds light on the immaturity of a 10-year-old, that you don't realize how young and naive and their lack of understanding. But I remember, so I should be embarrassed for this for 2 reasons, but I remember asking my teacher, there was I can't remember if it was an NSYNC or a Backstreet Boys concert coming up that I had gotten tickets for my birthday. It's in June. And it was coming up like that next weekend or, 2 weekends from there or whatever it was. And I remember asking her, like, do you think it's going to get canceled? Because, like, this is like my life. Like, that was what my world revolved around. Like, that was my birthday present. That's all I was concerned about. And I'm embarrassed to admit that's what, as a 10-year-old, that's what I'm thinking. As obviously at 10 years old.
You're also a 10-year-old.
I didn't realize a terrorist attack, that this is an attack on our country, and that, the effect that this is going to have on our country and all of us for the next 20 years, and the lives that were lost on that day and the lives that would be lost for years to come because of this. Like, so that I feel like that's why I want to share that, is that not because I want to admit my faults or whatever, but I think some people forget that you want your 10-year-old kid to understand everything, but you forget that your 10-year-old kid is still a 10-year-old kid and doesn't understand sometimes the scope of things. But I remember wondering that, and that being like my first concern, because I didn't understand. But according to my mother, because apparently she's always right, she said that she remained at her office. She came home, got a TV from our house, and I think I know which TV it was, because it was probably the only one that was portable, and it was one of those like teeny tiny little TVs with like the VCR in the front that is like a
still weighed 118 pounds.
Yes,
and
brought it to their office, and I think she said she got back in time to watch the second plane hit with that TV. She told me that she regretted not coming to get my brother and I, because we were both at a Catholic school at that point in time. And it was a small Catholic school. So, I think there was only 200 students max at the school. So, we were very small. And I guess some parents had come to pick up their children.
Yeah.
And my mom said that she felt guilty that she didn't come to pick us up, but she didn't really know what to do. but that they'd sat at their office to watch everything. And then we came home from school, and then I said, Mom, I remember watching the videos. And she was like, right, because you watched them when you came home from school. Everything was on repeat. And I'm like, okay. I mean, so I really don't have as vivid of a memory, you know, as I thought I did. And I think that over the last 20 years, because of, I would hope my maturity has increased in the last 20 years. And obviously my knowledge base, and I think my patriotism has increased, especially just even more so. I think being a first responder now, I really truly care about all our first responders and our, you know, military and our veterans and everyone involved.
And the citizens of this country who didn't ask for any of it. They didn't sign up to go. And I'm not, I know what you're saying, but you know, they didn't sign up to go into battle. No. They didn't sign up to go into their office job that day and be either killed, severely burnt, die from, you know, some type of disease, cancer and stuff from the chemicals and stuff that were involved. And that's some of the stuff we've seen. If you were fortunate enough to survive that day.
Yes.
There are so many people that months, years, whatever later have died from the effects and of that day. Yeah. And that's horrific. You had to go through all of that day. Think you're on the upside of it and that you're going to survive and you're going to get through this thing, and you get cancer or you have long-term health effects that eventually take your life when, you know, you should have years left ahead of you. It's just.
So one thing that my mom mentioned to me, because she was kind of just discussing, like, what I said, what do you remember from that day? And I kind of wanted to get into those documentaries a little bit, because that's what really, really moved me for us to do this episode. She made a comment to me, not knowing our reason for wanting to record this episode, that she remembers the video footage from the news being almost really careful, that she didn't remember seeing a lot of people jumping from the building. She said, I remember seeing one person jump from the building, but it being very far away and being very distorted, that you knew what it was, but it wasn't very clear that it was like the footage you're watching
nowadays, where they're focused on it. Yeah.
And do you want to name the two documentaries? Well, what's the first one that we watched?
The very first one we watched, and I think we just kind of stumbled across it
randomly
accidentally.
On vacation. Yeah.
It's actually on Netflix, and it's called Turning Point.
Okay.
And we agree the first half of it
was very moving.
Is good.
Yes.
The later half of it is more political, and that's not.
I didn't want to get into that.
I don't give a shit about that, honestly. When it comes down to 9/11, the politics and all that stuff, it in my opinion, for what it was, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And then
still a good documentary.
What's the second one? Because that was really.
The second one was actually there was a couple guys at work talking about it, and then it was funny because, you know, technology's always listening. Shortly after that, I think it was that night or the next day, my social media was flooded with people going, this documentary is insane. I can't stop crying while I'm watching it. And it was.
So that's the thing, is that
real quick, that one is One Day in America.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And it was a National Geographic thing, but we actually found it on Hulu.
Yeah.
So please continue.
So the Turning Point, I think that was the beginning of it was really a good, I don't want to call it like a refresher, but it really brought back like a lot of, I don't want to say memories, because I don't have a lot of memories from that day, but just remembering a lot of the facts and things that are true to that day that you should remember for years to come. But this most recent one that we just started watching is more focused on the perspective of the first responders on scene. And
we're not all the way through this.
No, we're just at the beginning. And
what are we, 2 episodes?
2 episodes.
And it is the
gut-wrenching.
Yes.
And I think the most, I'm getting chills just sitting here thinking about it. Watching and hearing the firemen that are standing inside Tower 1, and oh my God, like even just like thinking about it, like this is just getting me like, it's just making me feel weird. But when you hear the sounds of the bodies,
Yes.
well, you don't know it's bodies. You just hear this.
At first,
you
no.
hear this boom,
It's like an explosion.
boom,
And that's how
then
some
you
of
hear
them described it.
boom, 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 and then
Yes.
I don't know if someone said it or how it was or how it came, but it was people jumping from the building that were landing on however the overhang was above where they were. Their bodies were landing, and these firemen are just looking at one another with just these horrified looks of they have a job to do. They can't let anything affect them. And
And what a helpless feeling to know that there is
Yes.
nothing you can do for those people that are either in the process of have the thought of jumping, or have already jumped.
or already jumped or are above where the planes crashed, and you're not even going to be able to get to them.
God bless.
But it just, just horrific. And then watching these people run out of the building with their clothes just completely melted to their skin. And it is, I'm just sitting there, and I'm not saying like I sat there sobbing and that, but you can't help but have it bring a tear to your eye.
100%.
It is horrible.
It's sickening.
It is horrible.
It is genuinely sickening.
I couldn't imagine being put in that position. I really have tried really hard in my life, like at this point in my life, to really empathize with people and really try to sit back and think about decisions that people make and be like, okay, let me put myself in this person's shoes, and why are they doing what they're doing? And if I try to sit back in those people's shoes and have to decide between burning to death, they're in the floors above where the plane crashed, where they have no access, that they have no hope of being saved, and make that choice of being burned to death or to jump to my death, I don't know what I would do.
Yes.
I don't know. And then I think the second worst part of at least what we've watched to this point is those voice messages of the family members calling and just leaving these just couple second,
when you know that is the
last thing,
phone call.
the last thing.
Or even if you don't know, but you're going, look, I have to get this out because this could be
The last phone
the
call.
last time. I couldn't imagine.
Oh gosh, there's just so much I could say about this, but I really, I don't want to say enjoy it. There's just too much, like there's not
Right.
words that can describe, but the second documentary, I think they're doing a really good job, because it really is from
Yes.
the perspective of what the firemen and the first responders were seeing. And hats off to these heroes. If you want to say a hero, they were heroes that day. And the acts and the decisions that they made, they listed those 4 firemen, I believe it was, that saved over 70
some
lives,
people.
but they died.
And they never made it out.
Never made it out, but they saved over 70 lives, and it was just like, oh my gosh.
How about the random people? Your coworker, a guy that was in the next building or 10 floors down from you, or 10 floors up, that didn't know any of these other people, and they're throwing people over their shoulders. Yeah. They're running through smoke and fire with them.
Yeah.
Just what a day to show you
the true humanity of people.
100%.
And it wasn't just the firemen that were heroes or the police officer. There were civilians that were just
it was everybody that was involved.
that day.
100%.
But just, I think the crazy part of it though was is so hard sitting back watching is after everything happened in Tower 1 and people in Tower 2 are getting sent back to their offices, and you're sitting there going, oh my gosh, this could have been mitigated. So many lives could have been saved just by allowing them just to leave and just to evacuate the building and just, because did you write down the 2 different times? It was like a maybe 20-minute time period between the 2 planes for when they crashed. I can try and Google it.
8:46, 17 minutes later at 9:03.
So 17 minutes, so I was close. So, I mean, but 17 minutes is a lifetime to evacuate people from that building. I mean, look at how many people were evacuated in the 17 minutes from
Well, and you're
Tower
not doing an evacuation on a normal building.
No.
There is smoke, there is fire, everything is mangled. You can't use elevators. There's people with handicaps and disabilities that can't get down those flights of stairs. So many obstructions and so many things coming into play that you're not just evacuating, you know, and then firefighters are trying to run up the stairs. People are trampling them coming the other way. I couldn't imagine. And I don't know how I don't want this to sound bad. I don't know how you survive that day and then carry on with your life. How do you get past something like that, knowing you made it out, so many people were left behind, and how? Obviously, you don't forget it. If you're directly involved, you're not going to forget it. But how do you move forward?
I'm not sure.
I don't know how as a human being, and think about all the first responders that showed up that did make it, that lost, you know, brothers, sisters, whatever it was, when they collapsed or in fires or whatever it may have been, and then you have to go to work every other day after that and carry on and continue to do what you need to do. I don't know how you get past it. I really don't.
I think at that point in time, everyone that was involved there, my assumption is that they all just, in therapy, they would call boxing it. You box it up and you save it for another day. You have to box it up, and you're almost shutting it down. You can't allow it to affect you at that point in time, and you have to focus on what is ahead of you at that point in time. And you know, when you box it away, if you box it away properly, you know that you're going to have to deal with it another day. If you push it to the back burner and you don't deal with it, that's when problems, come from it, whether it's, alcoholism, drug use, or suicide, or things like that. But, I think that that's a huge problem. But look at a lot of our service members that, they come back and they've left their brothers and sisters over, and whatever war. I'm not just talking about over in Iraq or Afghanistan, but they've left, their people, and they feel this guilt, and, their family is just like, we just wanted you home. And they're like, no, but you don't understand. I don't want to be here. I want to be with, my people over there. And I think it's a struggle. I think that.
Well, I think that's the other crazy thing is going beyond the actual day of 9/11. That war and that process that came after that just ended. 20 years later. It just ended. So you think about the long-term effects.
Right.
And again, not only of that day, but look how many servicemen and women lost their lives for 20 years after that. Catastrophic, to say the least. I don't know how else to put it. I thought we were going to come on here and have all this stuff to say, but there's so much about it that just leaves you speechless.
I had a lot that I wanted to say, and I really am just like, you're overwhelmed.
Yeah, and I don't want to talk like I know what it's like, or like I know what it's like to be there, or be a first responder, or work in those buildings, or to have served overseas and go through what those guys did. I don't want to sound like that at all. This is more of a tribute, and just to recognize those people for all that they did, the stuff that they went through, the turmoil, the guys that either on 9/11 that made it through and are still suffering to this day, all the soldiers that were, overseas fighting the war that started that day, who are still affected and still having to deal with the consequences and everything that comes with it. I couldn't imagine. So hats off. I mean, I really don't know what else to say. I mean, it's insane.
It's a lot.
I can't. It really is.
It's a lot. I mean, there's.
And
just
like you said,
so
the older you get, and when it happened obviously for us when we were still young. Obviously, people that were a little bit older or much older when that happened, I think we're able to kind of absorb a lot of that immediately that day and immediately the days after. For us, we were still growing up. So I think it took a little bit longer for us to absorb it. And now that we are the ages that we are, me being the fresh, clean, in shape 22 that I am, and you obviously in your 30s, you know,
I'm not even gonna say
in
it.
all seriousness, when time goes on, you absorb it differently now.
You do.
I really feel like you do. Year all these years later, when we sit back and we watch just these documentaries on TV on our comfy couch with nothing going on around us, we sit back and I don't want to say we feel the effects of it.
No,
but I think it's easier to understand.
You just feel it in your heart. You
You
really
do.
feel for
You do.
these people.
Yeah.
And I just, for me, I feel like the hardest part for me, you said it well, is that we weren't able to absorb a lot of that when we were younger. And I wonder if whoever's listening, if they feel the same way, that maybe they weren't able to absorb or understand or really comprehend a lot of that as they were younger. And maybe at their point in their life now, kind of where we're at. And obviously, couple years ago, I feel like it started for me.
Right.
I really didn't involve myself a lot in the news and politics and stuff like that till probably like my mid-20s. I just really, I don't want to say I didn't care, but I just didn't really, wasn't on my radar. I just didn't really have, I had other things going on.
Until it really starts to directly affect you.
Right.
I don't think a lot of people, younger people,
Right.
pay attention and get involved and have their thoughts and their opinions.
But I feel like now, because I've absorbed a lot of it in a shorter amount of time, I've taken all 20 years of everything that's happened, and it makes me very angry. And I think that I take that anger and I just, sometimes I need you to kind of like tell me to like chill out. Like, you can't always say everything that's on your mind or how you feel, because not everyone's going to agree with it or understand maybe where I'm coming from or why I'm saying what I'm saying, or they misconstrue it or take it a different way or whatever. And I never want people to think that like I'm trying to present myself like I'm better or that I know more than them or whatever. I just really,
It's okay to have an opinion.
I care about people. Like, just because I'm not a veteran doesn't mean that I don't care about our veterans. Just because I'm not active military doesn't mean that I don't care about our active military. I have friends, I have family that people are in the military. I'm not allowed to care about them, just because I'm not a fireman doesn't mean I can't care about current firemen or, retired firemen and the people that are involved in 9/11. I have no affiliation with New York. Doesn't mean I can't care about that. And, it just makes me very angry. And then you just compound it with a lot of things, other things that we have going on. And it's very upsetting. And I just really hope that people maybe take a moment when because this will be released on 9/11. So if they're listening to this on 9/11, maybe take that moment. And if you're religious, maybe say a prayer. And if you're not religious, just maybe take a moment just to think about all the lives that were lost, and not even just the lives that were lost, but all the lives that were affected and that are still affected today,
and will continue to be affected after today.
Look at the children.
It's not going to stop. It doesn't stop.
One of the magazines, I don't want to say which one it was because I don't remember, but one of the magazines had on their cover, it was like the children of 9/11, and they were like my age because I'm the younger one, or my brother's age, maybe a little bit younger, but they were the children of 9/11, and it was just like, oh my God, like every year on 9/11, I couldn't even imagine being them and having to relive that every year after year after year. And if I were them, I would probably be really angry if people weren't still remembering, because it would be like, how dare you not just even give a thought to this day. And it was just such a tragic and horrendous day.
Even if you weren't directly involved,
you're still affected.
You were still directly involved
affected.
as a citizen of this country. And I don't say that to compare what those people went through who were there. No.
But everyone has been directly affected by this. Understand
one
that.
way or another. Yes.
Yeah.
Some obviously way more drastically than others. But as a citizen of this country.
I'm talking about like laws and different things that have
100%.
come from 9/11. Everyone
Absolutely.
has been directly affected by this.
100%.
You know, and then and I'm not taking away from the 9/11
Absolutely.
Victims, but you know, you look at today, and after 20 years and everything that we did, we're over, you know, we went to Afghanistan to begin with. Now we pull out of Afghanistan, and look at what is going on in Afghanistan now. And I'm just like, you sit there and you just watch it, and you just put your face in your hands and go, oh my God. I mean, the things that are happening to the women over there, you just wish that I'm one person. I can't do anything. I mean, even my voice doesn't do anything.
And you hope that we don't have another 9/11 now, because now they're pissed. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I really hope, I really hope that
I need a drink for that one. I really
that this never ever happens again. I really truly do.
Yeah.
Craziest day ever.
Did you write down? You said you were going to write down some numbers, just so that.
Yeah, there was a couple of different numbers that I got. One of the numbers I got was the overall death toll was 2,977. Now, I don't believe that was all that day. I believe some of that was tied into a short time after that of people who were deceased from, different cancers and stuff from the chemicals and stuff that were taken in. There were 344 firefighters that died that day.
Oh my gosh.
344. 71 law enforcement officers that day.
Wow.
So I know between cops and firemen, there's this joke of, you know, who's the real hero, or it should have been a fireman, or firemen sleep all day, or cops don't do. And that's great. Yeah. I really do believe that it's a little bit of that camaraderie. It's a little bit of the, you know, the rib jabbing and all that stuff. It is.
I like our firemen, so.
And we have a great working relationship with our guys next door, our fire department. And you're silly if you don't, right? I mean, that's just what it comes down to.
I want them to help me out if I ever 100%. Need them someday. So, yeah, I'm definitely.
But the staggering numbers
of
344 in one day.
That's horrible.
Is astonishing. And I say that to say that everybody that died there, no matter what your job was, whether you were making copies or you were a receptionist, everybody that died that day was a hero, right? Absolutely. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But obviously we have a special place for first responders because it is what we do.
Yeah.
I can't get over that. 344 and then 71 law enforcement officers.
Yeah.
But the shit that those firefighters did on that day.
Incredible.
Absolutely
incredible,
insane. Marching, going up those stairs, passing all those people that are out, breaching doors and getting people out that are trapped in the meantime while you're going up to, I mean, go back through and look at the pictures online and then tell me you're going to be okay with driving towards those towers when they're engulfed in smoke and fire and everything else, and you're going to be okay with climbing.
Most people are trying to run away from that, and they're driving towards it.
100%. Now, firefighters, don't let this go to your head. But
we love you, but don't go to your head.
I couldn't imagine.
I know.
I really couldn't imagine that.
You know what really breaks my heart is I think about, I'm not good at math, but over 400 families that had a knock on their door, and I just, that just makes me sick.
Or never got the knock on their door.
Ugh.
Because as we saw in some of these documentaries, they couldn't identify people.
Yeah.
And people were missing for weeks.
Yeah, but you would think that in our community
it took 10 months to clean that up.
But I'm saying in our community, I feel like they're very good about, even if they weren't able to identify a body, I would be pretty certain they would at least give them some sort of honorable.
Oh, 100%. There would have been something. 100%.
So
absolutely.
If they didn't get the knock, I mean something, but like, oh God, that the knock on the door is the last thing that you would want. And I would say
we watched the one opinion on the wife who lost her husband, who was a New York City fireman.
Yeah.
And she had a obviously her and her husband both had a pretty close relationship with
It's like a
lieutenant or captain or whoever it
yeah,
was
someone.
from his firehouse. She said she was sitting there watching the news. The van pulled up. Him and another
Yeah.
fireman, I don't know the rank, knocked on the door. She answers.
Making friendly conversation.
He makes small talk, and she already knew.
Yeah.
And that's when she looks at him and goes, can we just do that? Like, just get it. Just tell me. Just get it over with, and just tell me.
That is the worst thing ever. I mean, I don't even like
Horrible.
making death notifications in just our daily.
No, but what's better, the closure?
The closure.
Or the waiting around
absolutely.
for
No.
weeks
the closure,
trying
but
to
that
figure out.
That is like no one ever wants a
No.
knock on their door.
Nope.
You know, that's the perk of working together is no knock on my door. So we don't have to worry about
that's
that.
a whole nother topic because I don't know if it's necessarily a perk.
It's not a
because you don't want to be directly involved either, right? I mean, that's
no, but well, let's just not have it happen either way. Okay, let's just knocking
on wood.
Yep. Okay, we'll leave it at that.
But anyways, 10 months to clean up, which honestly,
I think that was quick.
I'm kind of
After
surprised it was only 10 months.
Seeing how much debris and damage, and I mean, after that,
And this is just a little Google thing, but it says the average time that this just says FDNY employees and retirees, which means people were like, shit, I know I'm done, but
I'm coming back.
I'm coming
yeah.
back. That they spent on that site was 3 to 4 months. Although some of them spent the whole 10 months, and it was concluded in July of 2002.
Jeez.
But I wasn't there in person, but from what I saw, I'm actually really surprised that it was only 10 months, because I remember watching New York City being a cloud of smoke for days
Yeah.
after they came down. I mean, obviously there's still, fires that are burning and smoldering and things of that nature, but there's also just that dust, that cloud.
Just crazy.
Insane. And I hope it's a day that never gets forgotten. I really genuinely do. Look at me now. I'm not as good about it, but I'm pretty regular about grabbing our flag, throwing it on the front of the house. Yep. No matter what your political belief is, right? Whether you like Trump, you hate Trump, you like Biden, you hate Biden, you liked Obama, you hated Obama, Bush. None of that shit matters.
Right.
In the grand scheme of things. Have your opinion. That's fine. I don't care. Have your opinion. Like who you want. Vote for who you want. That's fine.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it shouldn't be taken so personal to where I don't like you, or I'm not going to help you, or I'm going to shit on you, or I'm going to throw you under the bus. Because when you go back to times like this, I mean, think about it. None of that mattered that day. None of it. Even if you were Middle Eastern that day, knowing that Middle Eastern people were kind of to blame for this, nobody cared.
Well, that's because it was a small number of
right. But now you have so many people
radical
who hate you because
Islamists
of what you do, the color of your skin, your sex, you know what I mean?
right. And
it's sickening.
Yeah. But it was a small group, and unfortunately
100%.
the Muslim community did receive a lot of discrimination.
They did,
afterwards.
unfortunately. Yes,
They really
yes,
did.
they did. But I just wish we could get past it. You know what I mean? Past all of it, and the entire.
I don't know if our country, I don't see. Stop clicking that pen, for God's sake. Give me the pen. I really don't. I'm not trying to be a pessimist. I really don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. How do we get back to September 12th? How do we get back to that united front and just being a country where we can all just be supportive of one another to be whoever you want to be, doing whatever you want to do obviously within reason, not being
right.
a, piece of shit, breaking the law, doing whatever, but being a good person, just being a good person, living your life, doing what you need to do to get by, and supporting one another and helping one another out, and holding the door for someone every once in a while, or, seeing
So
an
I
elder.
think that's it right there. Those small little things.
Take
If you
a
start
moment and
holding
help
the door
someone.
for people, and I try to be very vigilant about that. I truly do. I'm not trying to.
I hold the door for people.
I'm
a
not
girl.
trying to toot my own horn, but I do. If we're in
Yeah.
public, I'll hold the door for you. I open your car door and sometimes hit you with it a lot of time.
Yeah, you
But
usually get hit, but
but it's those little things, in my opinion.
I just
And if you just start to be okay again with everybody, I
just don't see. I don't know how we get back to that. And I'm not trying to be a pessimist. I want us to get back to there, and I would love for our country to be united again. And I know that I, like to talk about my social issues that I get fascinated with and things like that. I'm never poking fun or ever trying to promote hate to any group or trying to alienate any group. I just get interested in something that is fascinating to me. But in the same token, like, you can still be whoever you want to be, and I can still support you, and I can still be united with you and still hold your hand at the end of the day if we have to be a united front. And I just feel like other countries right now are probably looking at us going, what a joke the United States is, to a certain degree, because I feel like in the past, the United States has always been a power country.
We've always been America United. And we are so unfucking divided right now.
We are not united. That is the last thing we are.
Oh my God, we are so divided. It's insane.
And it's sad. It's very sad, because the last thing you want to do is to feel that way. Like, you're just so alienated from everyone. And no offense, like, I blame a lot of social media and all this
100%.
shit, because, you get social media that divides a country. And I know that we have to use social media to promote our podcast, or social media to promote other things. And people use social media for their living. And I understand its purpose, but it is dividing this country, and it is helping break down where we were on September 12th. And I really, really hope and pray that we can
can't
get
trust
back to
anybody
that.
else in this country other than each other, right? So if you think the government's ever going to come in and help you with anything,
But that's not
you're
how
out of
it
your
should
mind.
be. But that's not how it should be.
But that's what I'm saying. If we get back to just hey, love thy neighbor,
I just
right? We can
yeah.
let's get back to that, and we're all neighbors.
But right now we have a leadership, and I'm not trying to like get political here
No,
and like
I
say
get
what
it.
president we like, but we have a leadership that literally people are making fun of.
Yes.
And is that the type of leadership you want? I don't care who my president is, but I don't want a leader that people are literally making memes about, making fun of, and questioning whether or not he is capable of running this country, or a vice president who has the lowest I cannot think of the approval rate in the history of all vice presidents. And they are literally hiding her because no one wants to hear from her or talk to her. And right now, after pulling out of Afghanistan, that is the leadership that you want for your country, and to represent who we are as a country, and probably the most divided nation that we've ever been. I don't want to say we're definitely not the worst off country. I mean, there are countries that are so,
we're not.
We are so fortunate here. We are so lucky here. And I am proud to be American, and I am proud to be here. And we are we're lucky to be here. But I just feel like we have come so far away from where we have been in the past that it's terrible. We need to stop kneeling for the national anthem. We need to everyone needs to take their hat off and put their hand over their heart, and
people have turned it
it's all political
into something that it's not.
It's
right?
all political. It's all political. It is.
But here we are, 20 years.
It's sad. It really is sad.
It is. The
most important.
Check out those documentaries.
Watch
mainly One Day in America, because that is definitely the better of the two. Now, Turning Point is good.
It was good. I really want to. We'll probably start watching One Day in America after we get off here, because
Well, yeah, and we haven't finished it, so we are chugging through it though, because I'm going to tell you what that was.
It's gut wrenching.
That was amazing.
It is really gut wrenching.
And I mean, you can't help but get a tear in your eye. I mean, it was. Because you're looking at people that were right there.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about being front line in something? That was it.
Yep.
The encounters that these people, man, they were it. It was their day.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to throw in there?
Not that I can think of. I had a lot planned in my brain, but
it's funny because I don't want to speak like we know or we were there. Or
I just wanted to take a moment just to
but
have
just for
people
some
think about it.
recognition.
We've been talking for about an hour now, and maybe if you've been walking, driving, working, whatever you're doing while you're listening to us, and hopefully you made it this far, if this was an hour of your time, maybe it was just your hour to be able to kind of remember for yourself, what were you doing on that day, and how it impacted you in your life for the last 20 years. And maybe you were directly impacted. And if you were directly impacted for you, then I do pray for you and your family. And I pray for everyone that was involved for it. And I feel for you. And I am sorry that if you were directly impacted, and I hope that you're able to deal with it, and be able to get the help that you need to be able to overcome those things.
Even if you weren't, keep this in mind, that in the blink of a freaking eye, because that is all the time it took,
right,
your world can stop, be flipped upside down, and everything can change for you.
Everything.
So keep that in mind. Try and keep it in mind as you go through your daily life. And look, we've all been guilty of being selfish and not caring about things, but
keep your loved ones close.
100%.
You know what?
Because at the drop of a hat, it can all be over.
Always tell your loved ones that you love them before you get off the phone, because you never know when that's the last time that you're going to get off the phone with them, and things like that. And you always hug them, keep them close, and you just never know. Yep. You never know. You hate to be morbid like that, but you never know.
Unfortunately, it's a sad reality of life.
It is.
So God bless everybody that was there for 9/11.
God
Obviously,
bless
everybody
America.
that lost their lives. God bless America.
And take care of I can't even talk. Take care, everyone.
Keep up the good fight.
Yeah, keep up the good fight. Thank you, everyone.
See ya.
See ya.
Thank you.